12. November 1983. Heiligenkirche am Main, Federal Republic of Germany. A mayor writes in his notebook, 1983, small town. I once signed party forms. Today I unveil a stone with names I never learned to pronounce. He does not read that sentence aloud. He does not need to. The stone stands in the autumn chill, granite smoothed, letters chiseled. The town square holds faces he has counted for 30 years. The brass band plays. The old men in their coats cough into handkerchiefs when the wind picks up. A woman holds carnations. A boy asks his father what the foreign names mean. The mayor's hand shakes as he lifts the cloth. This is a story about a town that learned to live with silence. It is also a story about paper, cards, files, stamps, signatures. The arithmetic of guilt follows the arithmetic of rations. The mathematics of memory follows the mathematics of reconstruction. Each number stands for something heavy. He signs the guest book and closes it. His name is Carl M. Born, 1913. Clerk, husband, soldier for 4 months, prisoner for 6, Mitläufer by decree, mayor by vote. He once was asked 82 questions by strangers at a folding table and answered each one with a pencil he did not own. He has carried that pencil in his head since. Heiligenkirche am Main was not a ruin in May 1945. It was a place with 3 chimneys still standing, a church bell cracked by blast, a railway spur bent like a child's toy, and a half-collapsed brewery. Elsewhere, Brno, Cologne, Dresden, Würzburg took on the famous names for rubble. Here, rubble was intimate. A wall where a window had been, a bed frame at an angle, a chimney above a cellared void. 3. May 1945. The first jeeps arrive from the south. The American soldiers look impossibly clean. Boys peer around corners. The white sheets hang from windows. The pastor notes in the parish chronicle, as translated in a post-war diocesan newsletter, no shots fired. Bridges taken. Order posted. Order means a paper tacked to the Rathaus door. Curfew from 21 Thou to 05 Thou. Surrender of weapons. Registration of all party officials and policemen. All properties of the Nazi Party and its formations to be declared. The Americans ask for the Burgermeister. He has fled. They ask for a deputy. A deputy is found, a butcher with some schooling. Then they ask for a clerk who can make lists. Karl is a clerk. He knows the files, the ledger of births and deaths, the map of the sewer lines. He can write clear German script. He can do neat arithmetic. He is told to produce names. The first lists he makes are simple: houses by address, inhabitants by age and sex, head of household. He writes with an American pencil at an American folding table, while an American corporal drinks coffee from a tin. He is 31 years old and has a wife with a cough and a son who dreams of airplanes. The first night is quiet. The second night is less so. A woman in a nearby village is raped by a man in a uniform who does not speak German. This is not in the town chronicle. It is in an occupation incident report, US. Third Army, Civil Affairs section, the kind that later goes into a cardboard box and then into an archive. The arithmetic of occupation is that some things are written and still not acknowledged. The order comes to collect party badges. The party offices are broken open. The war maps of Germany with pins in them are pulled down. There is a portrait of the Führer behind a sheet of glass. The glass is broken to get at the frame. A boy takes the frame to burn the wood. The portrait lies in the street until it gets wet and the paper buckles. A soldier asks Karl if he is a Nazi. He says, like most will say, I was a follower. He says, I signed forms. He says, we did as we were told. The soldier writes something on a clipboard. The soldier writes something on a clipboard. The soldier takes a cigarette out of a pack and offers it. Karl shakes his head. Later, he will learn he should have taken it. In 1945, a cigarette is 5 potatoes. The first mathematics after capitulation is caloric. Food is a number in your head, then in your stomach. In 1945, the average ration in the American zone drops to 1,200 calories per day. Hard bread, watery soup, occasional fat. The arithmetic of hunger is simple and cruel. In the OM-GUS Weekly Intelligence Report number 11, 19 July 1945, the line reads, "Morale is low, and food constitutes the major concern of the population. People faint in queues. Women trade wedding rings for butter. Men strip bark for pig feed." The word for the winter of 1946-47 is hunger winter, and it does not need to be translated. The rubble is more than bricks. It is routines turned to shards. Women, too young for mourning and too old for marching, become Trümmerfrauen. Not only in Berlin. In Heiligenkirch, they stack bricks in the schoolyard and blow the dust off red cheeks with chapped hands. A photograph from the municipal collection, undated but with winter light, shows 4 women with scarves tied under their chins, one with a cigarette stub leaning on spades. They are not heroes in their own view. They are necessary. The mathematics of rubble is in their arms. Each brick cleaned adds to a pile. Each pile becomes a wall. Each wall means a room that can be slept in without the drafts freezing the water glass on the bedside table. The men are missing. Some are in American camps on the Rhine meadows. Some are walking home. Some are dead in Russia. Some will never be found. The pastor's book records 6 funerals in June for men whose bodies are not present, their identity declared by a letter, then a stamp. The arithmetic of missing is a sum that cannot be written. A woman keeps a pot of soup on the stove for a year against a knock that never comes. A few weeks after the surrender, a new sort of list appears in Karl's office. The Fragebogen. The questionnaire. 131 questions in fine print. Name. Birthplace. Occupation. Party membership. SA membership. SS. NSKK. NSFK. Positions held. Lectures attended. Organizations supported. Subscriptions. Donations. From Directive Number 24 of the Allied Control Council comes the machinery by which millions will be sorted. It is denazification by paper. He sits in a room with other men and fills it out. Ink blotches where the... In the Sprüchkammer in the district seat, Neustadt, he will sit again months later, under a portrait of a bearded jurist rescued from the cellar where the Nazis had banished it. The categories are 5 and they will determine marriages, mortgages, careers, Hauptschuldiger, Belastet, Mittelstadt, Mitlaustadt, Entlastet. Major offenders, lesser offenders, followers, exonerated. He marks 1 May 1937 as his date of party membership. He writes, for professional reasons. He writes that he attended no political meetings. He writes that he wore no uniform. He writes Martha, the teacher, and Pastor H, and Herbie, the union man turned POW, as witnesses who can attest to his character. He writes his war service, drafted November 1944, surrendered April 1944, no combat decorations, no promotions. The arithmetic of guilt in the US zone produces numbers that look clean on paper. By 1949, 13 million Fragebogen have been distributed. 3.6 million cases processed by the Sprüchkammern. Of those, 90% end in Mittelhofer or Entlastet. Fines levied range from 50 Reichsmarks to 500. Sometimes a ban from public office for 1 year. Sometimes 5. A few thousand prison sentences. A few hangings for camp commandants and mass murderers, but not here. The Allied Intelligence Summit. 7th Army, March 1947 notes. denazification proceedings are increasingly perceived by the population as a burden and as an obstacle to economic recovery. The mathematics of stability overtakes the mathematics of justice. Karl's decision is stamped in blue. Mitläufer. He pays a fine. He is barred from his post for 12 months. He works in a sawmill instead. He learns the weight of timber. He learns to keep his head down. He keeps a copy of the ruling in the bottom drawer at home. His wife, Anna, says nothing when she dusts around it. Språkkammarrätten Karl M. Språkkammar Neustadt, 14 November 1947, will someday be typed as a reference in a dissertation. The hunger winter comes. Coal is short. The freight cars sit on sidings under frost because the coal mining quotas are not met, and the coal that is mined cannot be moved, and the coal that is moved cannot be burned because the chimneys are gone. People sleep in kitchens. They cut down trees in the municipal park and are fined by a clerk who knows them by name and knows why they did it. The ration cards look like salvation and like humiliation. Calories are printed in squares you tear off with a fingernail. A supplementary issue for heavy labourers helps the men who lift, but not their wives who cook. In January 1947, Karl writes to his cousin in the countryside to ask for potatoes. His cousin writes back, "We have little." Life is life. Anna trades her mother's silver spoon for a sack of rye. The black market becomes the market. A Chesterfield buys a ham. A pack of Lucky Strikes buys a bicycle. The American word care becomes a German noun. Packages arrive with powdered milk and tinned meat, and a gospel pamphlet in English. A soldier's girlfriend works in the office where the packages come in and tucks a bar of chocolate into the paper for a boy who says thank you in a foreign language that is not quite German. On a hill outside town, there is a former Wehrmacht depot. In summer 1945, it becomes something else. A DP camp. Displaced persons. The camp holds Poles, Ukrainians, Lithuanians, Jews from Koidi and Lublin, 3 Hungarian men who do not speak German and have numbers tattooed on their arms, 2 sisters from Krakow, an old man from Bessarabia. A British officer in a white scarf visits and writes, "Population mixed. General health good. Relations with local Germans strained but not hostile." He writes strained because the English have their own words for what they see. The German families in town hear the singing at night in a language of mourning. Some of them walk past the camp and do not look. Some of them look and do not stop. The new American civil affairs officer orders the mayor to requisition food for the camp. Karl writes the invoices. He writes the names that don't fit the forms. He learns to spell Suge. He learns that W can be a V. He writes them on the lists, Sulamith, Waadisno, Chana. He learns to make umlauts into other marks. He never says the names out loud. He does not know where the stress goes. In the archive, this will be a requisition dossier, Heiligenkirch DP Camp, 1945 to 1947. The first rumor of the camps the Germans ran, comes from the refugees who passed through the rail station, a woman in a thin coat with a shaved head holding a child who will not speak. She sits on a bench and someone brings her broth. Someone else says, "It cannot be so bad." Another person says, "It was war." The Memorandum of the Military Government Detachment, July 1945, describes a policy. Show documentary films on concentration camp, liberations to local populations. In the town hall, a projector flickers. Men remove their hats. Women hold handkerchiefs to their noses. A boy stares at the grit on the film. When the lights go up, there is a quiet that is not agreement. It is calculation, what to say, what not. The mathematics of denial requires subtraction of details. The expellees arrive. They come from Silesia, East Prussia, Pomerania, Sudetenland. The trains stop and people spill out with featherbeds and crates and old people who cannot walk. They smell of smoke and wood and cold. They come with music from church halls, a dialect that sounds familiar, then breaks under a word from beyond. The expulsions put 8 million into the western zones. In January 1946, the district commissioner writes, "We must assign quarters. There is nowhere." The arithmetic of rooms is brutal. A 4-room apartment becomes an 8-person barracks. A pantry becomes a bedroom. A stable becomes a kitchen. The mayor posts a list in the square. The family of Herren Frau Z will receive the childless couple, expellees from Königgrätz. The childless couple is not childless. Their children are dead. The locals complain that their potatoes are stolen. A minor brawl outside the bakery leads to 2 broken teeth and an old man weeping with rage that no one will ever repair. The expellees form associations, write petitions, demand a voice. They have posters, Heimatrecht ist Menschenrecht. The right to a homeland is a human right. The locals say, "We suffered too." The arithmetic of victimhood becomes municipal politics. Later, the mayor will need these votes. Karl returns to office after his ban ends. He replaces a man who has gone to Cologne to sell textiles. The files look different now. There are Allied stamps on them. The eagle of the Reich has been removed, but its outline remains faintly visible where the ink bled into the fiber. He learns new phrases, Grundgesetz, Parlamentarischer Rat. He says, Federal Republic out loud, and it feels like a foreign tongue in the mouth, but no less so than the old words once did. 1948. Currency Reform. 20 June. The day people remember like a birthday. The new money is blue and stiff and crisp. The morning you have nothing. The evening you have something. Shops fill with goods that have been in back rooms for years waiting for this. The black market dissolves. It staggers a few months. Then it is gone. The arithmetic of prices changes overnight. A loaf of bread is a Deutschmark. A wage is a number that adds to a future that can be imagined. The Marshall Plan is crates and cranes, and a story you could tell with photographs. It is also calories and coal and credit lines. ERP shipment. List number 982 shows a consignment, machine parts for a textile mill in Heiligenkirch. Karl signed them in. He makes sure the crates go to the right address and not to an address with a cousin behind the door. The new factory smells of oil and possibility. A man returns from a French camp and learns to run a lathe. A woman who once cleaned bricks runs accounts. The foreman dreams of washing machines. The first free municipal election under Allied supervision is held in 1948. Karl's name is on a list, not at the top, not at the bottom. He is a Democrat in the new sense, a party that promises order without uniforms and work without ideology. He is not proud, he is cautious. In 1952, he becomes head of the Finance Committee. In 1958, he becomes deputy mayor. In 1967, he becomes mayor. He holds the chain with the medallion for the first time and thinks of his father's carpentry tools. In the 1950s, the town builds a memorial that says, Unseren Gefallenen, to our fallen. The stone carries dates, 1914, 2020, 1939, 1939, 1945. The words are old as empire. The sculptor uses a motif of a dying soldier. The faces at the dedication are similar to those today, older, thicker, tidier. The pastor speaks of sacrifice. The district representative speaks of the homeland, lost beyond the Oder. No one speaks the names from the DP lists. In schoolbooks, the war is presented with photos of bent rails and bombed churches. A chapter ends with the population suffered under air raids. The teacher says a sentence about Hitler leading the nation to ruin. She does not mention that the Jewish family on the corner had their shop seized in 1938. She knows this. She is not a coward. She is a human being in a town where the brother of the policeman sits in the front row and stares at her like a question. The Ministry of Culture. Guidelines for History. Instruction, 1956, uses the term Zeitalter der Diktatoren and devotes 3 pages to the Holocaust. The arithmetic of curriculum is negotiated by committees of men who had signed party forms. In 1963, the radio carries the news from Frankfurt am Main, the Auschwitz trials. The word Auschwitz becomes a sound in the living room. A judge asks questions. A witness answers, "They selected us. They did not use our names." A photograph of defendants behind glass fills the pages of newspapers. Carl reads in bed and counts the names of men who come from places he knows. He feels disloyal to have the thought that their faces are like faces he has seen in mirrors. He wonders whether the men who ran the local subcamp of Flossenburg, 20 kilometers from a factory where he once delivered paper, have files in the Bundesarchiv that list his town. He closes the newspaper and goes to work in the morning. In 1968, students throw stones at the Springer building. They shout that their fathers were Nazis. He watches them on television, then drives to a meeting about the sewage system and listens to a man complain that the new pipes are too small. The arithmetic of responsibility is interrupted by the arithmetic of pipes, then resumes. He is not extraordinary. He is typical. Bodies like his carry the Bundesrepublik into the 1970s. He cuts ribbons on housing blocks. He signs contracts for a new primary school. He meets a French mayor from a twinning town and drinks wine in a hall with flags and a marching band. He smiles in photographs with men who wear neat ties and keep their eyes on the middle distance. Behind those eyes are files stamped Mitläufer. In 1979, a television series called Holocaust plays on German television. Ratings are high. The phone-in afterward is heated. "I did not know," a caller says. "We all knew," another says. In Heiligenkirch, the next morning, the baker says to his customers, "You see, it was terrible." A woman in line shakes her head and says, "It was war." A student from the gymnasium writes a letter to the editor, "We must remember our Jewish citizens by name." The letter runs with 2 signatures. One is the name of the new archivist, a man from Mainz, no family in town. The other is the name of the mayor's son. The archivist writes to the International Tracing Service in Arolsen. He writes to the Bundesarchiv in Koblenz. He writes to Yad Vashem. He writes to the Memorial Book for the Victims of the Persecution of Jews under the National Socialist Tyranny in Germany, 1933 to 1945. "Letters go out," replies, "come in. Names are enclosed. Birthplaces are listed. Dates of deportation. Transport numbers. Addresses. Marktstrasse. 12. Mühlenweg. 3. Heiligenkirch had 4 Jewish families in 1933. He finds that a forced labor camp outside town held men whose names are a test for German tongues: Kazimierz, Bronislaw, Zuziana. He writes each on index cards. He cross-references. He visits old women who remember. They remember what they need to. He writes down what they say in pencil, then writes in pen what they say in pen, what the documents say. The 2 are close but not the same. He asks the mayor for a meeting. It is 1981 and the air has a new kind of chill, moral as well as meteorological. He brings the cards. He brings copies of the transport list, Würzburg to Izbica, 25 April 1942. He brings a photograph of a brass plaque from another town. He brings an argument. He does not lecture. He shows math. The mathematics of absence: 4 families, 29 people, 8 survive. The arithmetic of labor: 32 forced laborers in 1942, 11 dead. buried at the edge of the forest. Names unmarked. Carl listens. He recognizes the numbers. He has known numbers like this. He feels the ordinary sensation of paper against his fingers. He hears the new word Vergangenheitsbeultigung in the archivist's voice and makes himself say it out loud in his head. He nods. He says the word memorial and it lands in the room like a stone. He agrees to form a committee, Arbeitskreis Geschichte. He does not think this will be popular. He does not think it will be easy. But he is 70 now, and the arithmetic of time is no longer abstract. The committee meets in a classroom. The blackboard is still dusty from school. They decide to place a stone. They decide on a date. They argue about the text. They consider the map. They visit the edge of the forest where the grass is always a shade different even in summer. The man who runs the lumberyard says he had no idea. He picks at his fingernails and looks away from the holes in the ground that show as depressions. A woman who remembers a boy with dark hair and a quiet voice says she had no idea. She cries. She did have an idea. She was 20 in 1942, and now she is 60. The arithmetic is not a secret. The Bundesarchiv sends copies of 2 deportation orders, Lower Main District. The files are clean, typed, bureaucratic, with a chilling normalcy. The Spruchkammer file for a police inspector is found. It contains the line, participated in the supervision of Jewish deportations on April 25, 1942, denies knowledge of ultimate destination. The inspector was declared Minderbelastet and resumed a career in the fire brigade. He retired in 1961 with a pension. His granddaughter teaches in the primary school. The mathematics of guilt is a family tree. Carl is asked to give a speech. He knows what is expected. The mayor is the voice of the town. He is also the voice of his own doubt. He writes 2 speeches. One is for the square, one is for his notebook. The notebook line is the one he could not say in 1957. It is the one he writes now because the balance has shifted. 1983, small town. I once signed party forms. Today I unveil a stone with names I never learned to pronounce. He practices the public speech in his office. We gather to remember the victims of war and tyranny. He deletes tyranny. He writes National Socialist injustice. He deletes and writes again. He will say Jews. He will say murdered. He will not say we. He will not say we. He will not say I. He will let the stone say those words for him. On the day, the Expellee Association arrives with a wreath. Their banner has the map of their lost province. They stand with their own grief, which is not small. An old man says under his breath that our dead have no stones. Another old man says, not appropriate. A younger man shushes him. The pastor wears a stole with a Star of David embroidered at the bottom, a gift from a rabbi in 1978, part of a reconciliation that moves through towns in small, careful steps. A man in a suit comes from the regional government. He gives a safe speech. He has a car with a driver. He leaves early. The stone remains. The stone will remain even when graffiti is drawn on it at night and then scrubbed off in the morning by a woman who did not know where the stress went in the names and now speaks them under her breath as she rubs. Carl goes home and takes his Spruchkammer decision from the bottom drawer. He reads it. He sees the handwriting that is his own and that is not. He reads his own words, joined for professional reasons. He believes them. He also knows that the arithmetic of professional reasons added up to a country where lists like the ones he signs now went to destinations he never allowed himself to think about. He puts the paper back. He takes out a lined notebook and writes a sentence that can be spoken only now. There is a widely circulated belief that memory moves in one direction. It does not. It circles, like a hawk looking for mice in a stubble field. In 1969, the Bundestag passed a law that made some positions available again to those who had been barred. In 1951, the 131er Gazettes returned pensions to public servants dismissed after 1945. In 1955, the Bundeswehr was founded, and it hired men who had worn field grey. In 1960, the statute of limitations for murder was extended so that some trials could proceed. Each law has a number. Each number has biographies attached to it. The mathematics of a restored state is indistinguishable from the mathematics of a postponed reckoning. A file in the Bundesarchiv contains a map with a red dot near Heiligenkirche, subcamp, Außenlager of a larger system. The inventory notes dates of operation: September 1944, March 1945. Numbers employed: 60. Mortality: 60. Mortality: 22 documented. The men were moved when the American front approached. Some died on the way. Some remained in the forest and starved. A child found the spoon. The spoon was used for years in a kitchen, and no one asked where it came from after the first non-question was asked. Find? Jar. The mathematics of inheritance includes spoons. A man who left Heiligenkirche in 1938 returns in 1982, invited by the archivist. He stands at the square. He is old and careful. His name is on the list of those deported from Würzburg. He did not go because he did not stay. He survived in Shanghai. He looks at the street where his father had a shop. He writes in a letter later, "The house is smaller than I remember. The sky is the same. The people do not look like me anymore, but sometimes a face almost does." The letter is placed in a municipal folder. The archivist reads it aloud at a meeting. The mayor listens to the cadence. He finds the courage to say Jews in his speech. He also remembers another story. In 1944, a Czech girl worked on a farm outside town. She was 17. She was beaten when she stole eggs. A neighbor heard the beating through the hedgerow. He said nothing then. He is dead now. His grandson tells the archivist. The archivist writes, "Oral history, file no." The mathematics of silence includes hedgerows and their whispers. No one in Heiligenkirche burned a synagogue on Kristallnacht because there was no synagogue to burn. The Jewish families went to the city to worship. A window was broken in the shop of the family who lived on Marktstrasse. Someone pretended that a football had been at play. The police took 2 men in for questioning and released them. The local police log, 11 November 1938, reads, "Night disturbances. No serious incidents." The arithmetic of euphemism is familiar to any clerk who has lied with a steady hand. The mayor's career is ordinary and therefore instructive. He signs permits for building, then for demolition, then for building again. He signs a purchase order for a crane that stands, years later, in the background of a photograph of the stone being unveiled. He meets the same men in different jackets over the course of decades. He learns their trajectories: SA to fire brigade to civil defense, Labour Front to Union to Works Council. The words change. The hands stay the same. The mathematics of hands includes calluses and signatures. He knows his town is not unique. He knows that what they do has been done elsewhere, and better, and elsewhere and worse. He has read about the cities where planners laid out wide memorial streets and the villages where one plaque on a church suffices. He rejects the thought that the work is about comparison. The archivist tells him that in a place called Zielsheim there were barracks for DPs, and in Fürstenwald, the last Jewish camp in the American zone, closed only in 1957. He knows they did not see those people when they were 20 feet away. He thinks about nearness as a moral measure. The mathematics of nearness is not taught in school. He also knows that the stone will not fix anything. He does not believe in fixing. He believes in bearing. The stories will still be unsymmetrical. The expellee who lost a farm will still hate a border on a map. The widow who lost a son will still light a candle at a generic soldier's grave and resent that other names are spoken in the square. The teacher will still calculate pauses in class when she says, Auschwitz. The mathematics of grief has no common denominator. There are men in the room when the committee meets who have thought of the Cold War as permission. We stood on this side with the Americans, one says in his circle of friends. We are the good Germans. Karl hears this and does not argue. He remembers 1950 and the question of rearmament. He remembers the scent of fear in meetings when the Soviets squeezed Berlin and the way men who had traded cigarettes now traded in vows to defend the West. He knows that the West accepted old hands because it needed them. He was one of those hands. He is grateful for his pension. He is not blind to the bargain. The arithmetic of alliances has always favored expediency. He is less sure now that the European unity he signs to in a ceremonial book absolves anything. He is sure that it obliges. He is not a theologian. He is a man with a ledger. He looks at his town budget and sees lines, heritage conservation, memorial maintenance, cleaning services. He asks the clerk to add a small amount. The clerk says, "Is this necessary?" He says, "Yes." The arithmetic of memory has a cost center now. On the morning of November 12, the square smells like damp leaves and wood smoke. A stone delivered by truck last week sits under a draped cloth. The cloth is grey, the way the sky is grey. The names underneath are black, lettered by a mason from the next town over, who complains about the foreign letters until he does them, and then, at the end, pauses and runs his finger over them without a word. The pastor speaks first. He reads a psalm. He quotes Micah. He does not moralize. He is old enough to have seen the war from the perspective of a child, and young enough to sign a petition in 1968. He says the phrase, "in our name," and it hangs in the air like a bell. The archivist reads the names. He does not attempt to get every sound perfect. He gets most. He pauses between them as if listening for a footstep. The mayor speaks. He says what can be said from a podium. He says, "We remember our Jewish fellow citizens and the forced laborers from many countries who died here." He says, "We have learned." He is careful with the words. He is honest as far as the form allows honesty. He feels the sentence he has written in his notebook burn in his pocket, the one about signing party forms and unveiling a stone with names he could not pronounce. He does not read it. He cannot. The form will not carry it. He carries it alone. After the cloth is pulled, the people shuffle forward. They read. They are shocked by how many names fit on one stone. Not many. Enough. 17 names from the town and 22 from the camp. A woman touches the name of a girl she remembers. Her hand trembles. A boy asks his father what it means. The father says, "It means we were wrong." The boy nods and kicks at a leaf. A week later, someone writes a letter to the newspaper complaining that the monument insults the fallen. A week after that, someone else writes that it does not go far enough. The stone receives a frosting of early snow. It looks like every other stone in a German winter, and like no other. In the years that follow, classes are brought to it. The teacher speaks the names. She still stops in a way that makes the class quiet. Someone proposes a Stolpersteine project in front of houses. The mayor is no longer in office. He sits in the back of the town hall as a citizen and votes to let them dig the pavement. He goes home and, for the first time, takes out the spruchkammer paper and tears it in half. He places the halves in the stove and does not light them. He puts them back in the drawer. Paper deserves respect, even if it is a lie. He writes more often now. Not a memoir. Notes. He finds Allied intelligence summary phrases echo in his head. He writes, "We learned quickly to count flour and slow to count names." He writes, "We said never again like children reciting a prayer and then walked away thinking the prayer had done the work." He writes, "If a stone is heavy for an old man to lift, a name is heavier." He writes, "Sometimes I think the best we did was learn to stop speaking of ourselves only as victims." He writes, "The worst we did was to stop speaking at all." A local historian publishes a brochure, 34 pages long, with the photograph of the stone on the cover. The brochure cites Bundesarchiv R9361, the bureaucratic series that holds personnel files for Nazis. It footnotes an OMG-US report on denazification, 1949, that concludes, dryly, "The primary goals of denazification have been modified to the realities of Reconstruction." The brochure includes photocopies of a few minutes from the Sprüchkammer, with names blacked out. A man at the bar says, "We have had enough of this." He has not. The work is never enough. The town continues. The brewery, Rebiwi.